Welcome to the Kicking It with Daree show. This episode is part of my new ColorVO collective series where I'm highlighting African-American voice actors who may not necessarily be well known by name, but are like either on their way to killing the game or killing the game. And so I'm really, really excited to introduce my biz bestie. I have crowned her with that title as of last year when I met her. So first, let me tell you how awesome she is. Originally a stage actor, Mia Bankston has been acting for most of her life. She has had unlimited opportunities to play with the spoken word in theater training at Tennessee State University and the Florida State University Oslo Conservatory for actor training. She obtained her voiceover training from Edge Studio and continues to work with various private coaches. As a full-time voice actor, her home studio is based in New York City. Her recent clients, and she has a hard time collecting them all because she's so busy. She's booked and busy. But just so you know, the Oprah Winfrey Network, Nick Jr., Chateau Ste. Michelle, McDonald's, Random House, Toyota, Pandora Internet Radio, Secret Deodorant, Pantene, General Mills, Remy Martin, Shea Moisture, Independent Lens, TMJ for Milwaukee, Bank of America, and NBC, just to name a few. So welcome to the show, Mia.
Hey, thank you. Hey, bestie.
I know. So let me tell you all how we met. Last year, this episode is going live in December of 2020. And so last year in 2019, we both attended the inaugural Vocation Conference in New York City. Of course, that was a hop, skip, and a jump for her. For me, I had to travel a little bit. And one of the things that I wanted to do there was not only to network with people in the voiceover industry, but also to meet my sisters. Like, these are people that I was connecting with on Facebook and other social media platforms. But contrary to popular belief, there are many people of color in the voice acting industry. And, I think it's important for us to be able to support each other, help each other, network with each other, befriend each other. And so what ended up happening was, of course, this wasn't planned, but what ended up happening was, and I think this also was helpful because of the size of the conference, it wasn't humongous. There was a small group of us that connected over those 2 or 3 days and decided we're going to form a mastermind group and we're just going to meet every single month, talk about our goals, talk about what's going on in our lives, help each other, give each other feedback. So we met at this vocation conference, and on the first night, there was a social event and it was extremely loud. It was a small group of us and it was extremely loud. We were kind of like in a bar and I don't know. I was just like, okay, I can't really hear people. Everyone is screaming and we're at a voiceover event. We don't need to be screaming at each other when we're sitting next to each other. We need our voices. We need to be able to talk to each other and do other stuff if you have to work in between. So she and I ended up going to a restaurant that was like, maybe a half mile down the street. And, we had dinner and I even remember some of the stuff that we talked about. And then when we separated that night, I just remember thinking to myself as I walked back to my Airbnb and she went back to the subway, like, oh my goodness, like, I really like her. Like, this person, like, I feel like this person could like really be my friend. And you guys, without like going off in a big tangent, if you are of a certain age, it is not easy to make friends. It's sometimes not easy for kids, but when you're an adult, when you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, it's not so easy to be able to connect with people in person. And this is, of course, pre-pandemic. But so I was kind of like excited, like, oh, this person can be my friend. So now we're friends. And like I said, I have coined her as my biz bestie because I'm sure she has her own best friend. But, for purposes of voiceover, I have claimed her. So just so you know, you guys can't have her. Okay. So now, enough about me and how we met. Let's get into your background, Mia. So I know I introduced you a moment ago, and I talked about how, you have worked in conservatory, you've been acting most of your life. And so tell us a little bit about how you got into, regular acting, voice acting, and things of that nature that influenced your VO journey.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for that wonderful introduction and for actually having me on here and talking about, the business of VO and all those good things. I remember when we met. Well, first we had kind of like I think we talked to each other online. I think it was it Tiffany's group? Was it Black Girl Voiceover World? That it was that group, right? That
Yeah.
we met.
Yeah.
And so, meeting you in person was, of course, it was awesome because we are all on our own doing our thing in the booth as voice actors, but actually meeting in person has been a treat. And that night when we went to have dinner and we were vibing, there was the restaurant we went to, they had like the DJ was jamming and we were vibing, and I I so appreciated that. So yeah, it's been wonderful to get to know you and to discuss all kinds of things besides voiceover with you. Um, but yeah, so I started out acting as a kid, and when I went off to undergrad, I went to school for theater and speech communication, and I had an acting coach at Tennessee State, a historically Black university. I had an acting coach there. His name is Barry Scott, and he just recently passed, so may he rest in peace. But he was in voiceover, and he was one of the voices for TFN wrestling. He did stuff for the NBA, numerous commercials and promos. And so he would direct me with, on the stage. But he said to me one day, "Hey, you have a great voice and you know how to tell a story really well. You should get into voiceover." And I was like, okay, yeah. It was something that had always kind of piqued my interest anyway. And anything with, performing always kind of really interests me. And so I said, okay, so how do I, how do I get involved? And he pretty much told me, about getting a demo and everything. I have to, get my demo recorded and set up and all that. So we went through the process of looking for demo copy and him, researching and looking for copy for me. But I never completed the demo because I was trying to get into grad school for theater. And I was like, the theater department at the grad school that I went to, they have a program where you can study abroad in London. And so I was focused on getting out of undergrad and getting to grad school so that I could have my trip to London. And so I kind of put off voiceover, on the side while I pursued theater. So fast forward, I graduated from grad school. Well, first graduated from undergrad, then grad school. Then I moved to New York, and I moved at the end of 2007. And we all know in 2008, the economy went crazy. And so I kind of was just this, starving artist, kind of like scrambling, trying to figure out how I was going to feed my face and pay my bills and also be a creative. And I ended up taking a day job, like between 2008, 2010. I was kind of struggling, trying to figure out, how to exist in the world being a creative as well as, not starving. Mm-hmm. And I ended up taking a day job in 2010. And that did not allow me to audition for theater. And I knew I needed to be doing something creative. And so that's when it popped into my head again, voiceover. You can start looking at voiceover. And that's what I did. I started, researching, taking classes. I took classes with Edge Studio, and went through their program for the whole year, 2010. And by the end of 2011, I had pretty much gotten my narration demo set. I had been working on building my home studio. I had gotten all that set. And I think by the end of 2011, I had joined voices.com and was booking work. And so that's how my journey kind of started. It started with the training, even though I had, an acting background. It started with that. And and then going from there, pretty much going from there. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear everyone's backgrounds because, you don't have to have necessarily an acting background to
Mm-hmm.
begin doing voiceover, but you
Right.
do, regardless of whether or not you have the on camera acting background, you do need training, you do need
Yeah.
coaching. And I think that that's something that we're always telling people that ask us. I mean, I don't know about you, but it seems like every week people are coming to me, they're hitting me in my DMs. Hey, how can I get started? How
Yeah.
can I get started? And that's something that's very important to understand, that is regardless of, what you've been doing in the past. I mean, I think anything that we have done prior to voiceover can influence and enhance and enrich our experience in voice acting. So
Yeah.
the fact of whether or not you have done, formal on camera acting doesn't mean necessarily that you can't do voice acting. My
Right.
background is in writing. You have a different background. So it's like, I think all of those things still inform the different types of work that we voice, right?
Yes, absolutely. The main part is that you're a communicator. I always say I'm a conversationalist, so if you are very skilled with language, as you're saying, Daree, being a writer, and you understand how to get inside the brain of whoever's writing the copy or the script for narration, and if you have that skill, you're skilled at language or languages, as some of us, some voice actors are bilingual or multilingual. Um, it really is about that. It's about communication and conveying whatever message it is to the audience. So if you're good at being a communicator, that's a huge part of being a voice actor.
Hmm. You have to be able to communicate, and you also have to be able to imagine. I think when
Yeah.
we're all kids, it's something that some of us lose a little quicker than others, but something that
Yeah.
all children have in common is that they have imaginary friends, whether it
Mhm.
be like someone that you can't see, that there's their pretend friend, or they have dolls or teddy bears or something lined up, and they have created scenarios, and they're a family, like they're a parent or they're a teacher or whatever, and they're setting up all the toys in a certain way in an arrangement, and they have created this world of their own. And I think that that's really helpful to be able to tap into. We haven't talked a lot about genres yet, but there's lots of voiceover genres. A lot of people are interested in animation. So obviously, imaginary friends, and being able to be creative in your mind on the fly would definitely help you with animation, but it helps with other genres too. And I don't even do animation, and I know that. So
Yeah, the ability to play, to find that child within, to be goofy or wacky or whatever, you want to call it. I think not too long ago, we were in a group and someone asked, well, what was the worst, or the craziest thing that you've had to do in in a recording session? And I was saying I literally had to go bah, like a goat, like I
yeah.
if that, all those kinds of things, there's that playful side of voice acting, of course, with animation and video games. But even with narration, yeah, sometimes you're playing characters within narration. I don't know how many scripts that I've done where I've had to pretend that I'm the manager of some laboratory or some kind of facility, and we're trying to teach the correct rules and regulations for the employees and all those things. It is very much about play. It's being a communicator, being able to play, being able to have that imagination to come in, because I don't know a thing about being in a laboratory setting, but
Yeah.
but when you can put yourself in that story, and find ways to put yourself in that story, because it's different for all of us. Some of us can just think of something and create it in our mind like that. And for some of us, it's harder. We have to literally, some of us have to sit down and write out, okay, well, what is this feeling that this person would have? Or what is this like in my life? How can I relate this in my life? Or how can I substitute this emotion that this character or this person, this person in the script is feeling for whatever has happened in my life? So, yeah.
And what Mia's referring to right there is something that we call connecting with the copy. When you are voice acting, you're actually supposed to be acting. You're not just reading. Most of us can read. Most of us have finished at least, middle school, high school, and we know how to read. So, reading is one thing and voice acting is another. So when the difference between, the voice acting and the reading is that when you're voice acting, you're reading, but you don't sound like it. You sound like you're actually that character that she was just describing. And so it's hard for me sometimes to get out of my head and get there. I actually have in my booth, I have like pictures and reminders of things because there's a lot of very popular directions that are given for projects and auditions. Like we want this person to sound real. We don't want them to sound rehearsed. We don't want them to sound too commercial, too polished, too perfect, too much like an announcer. We want them to sound like a regular person. And so that might mean, for example, that when you're reading something, you might not say each word just like this because people don't enunciate all the words like that. It just depends on what kind of, if you're doing something that's medical narration, you probably are going to be precise like that. But if you're doing something else that's a real person, then you're probably going to start to make contractions and say gonna, not going to. These are just little tricks that we have to do to try to meet the needs of, our producers and agents and other people that we work with. And I think that's important to mention because this is such a creative business and it's so subjective that you can look at the instructions and what you need to read and interpret it a myriad of ways. And it just depends on who's listening and who's in the room. I mean, I think both of us can trade stories about being in long sessions because there's a lot of stakeholders in the room that are listening to us read and they have different opinions about, no, do it the way you did it before. Read it this way. No, sound more conversational. Sound more like this. And it's like they know it when they hear it. That's what they say, but they can't necessarily convey it with words. That's why that interpretation is so important.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it can be hard when you're in that in that session and there are so many people trying to tell you what they want and what they think they want. So that is definitely why I think being able to deliver variations of the copy, that's important too. So if you're changing the pitch or you're changing how long you say, if you're elongating the word and the sound of that word, all of those things, or is it quick? Is it fast? All those things can help with adding variety. So when your client is like what you're saying, Daree, I don't know exactly what I want. Some people are saying, I don't know exactly what I want. Or there's several people saying different things. You can give them a variety of things. Mm-hmm. So hopefully they will all be, able to decide that's the one. That's what we want.
And that's part of the acting is being able to trust yourself and offer options. If you look at it as, I think this is very important, is mindset, right? If you look at it as they've rejected my audition or they've rejected this thing, you're going to set yourself back. You're not going to be as successful. You've got to start with the mindset and say, I'm willing to work. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to coach and get better and listen to feedback and do whatever. It is very, very possible that you could do an audition or do a project, do a session, and you have given certain options and you've gone all around the world and come back to those original options just because they, couldn't make up their mind or get it together. But you have to be patient and be coachable and be willing to work with people And I think that that's really a key. You were mentioning in the beginning of this that it can be hard to connect with other voice actors and people in general as an adult, just because, you're working on your own, you're working by yourself. So you want to try to build rapport with people and just be known for being easy to work with. Um, it astounds me how many people have been in the business and, they've been doing it for a long time, but they're jerks, and it's like, I don't know how successful you could be and for how long, if you are not willing to work with people and be professional. So that, I don't know where that came from, but I just thought I would throw that in there because it can be frustrating, when you're doing VO to try to give somebody what they want and you go back and forth over emails and during a session or whatever, trying to give somebody what they want because they can't describe it well, or maybe you just not interpret whatever the impasse is. It can be frustrating at times.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, yeah, you definitely, yes, always want to have that level of professionalism as a business owner, and if I don't know, uh, I know, Daree, that you have all levels of listeners in the VO community, but as a new person coming in, I don't know. Sometimes, well, especially I know on the actors, right? People who are coming into voiceover and they were, maybe they were theater performers or whatever. You don't always necessarily think of yourself as a business owner, and that's what you are mostly in the voiceover world. So the level of professionalism that you would have if you were working in corporate America, sometimes you have to have that with the clients that you're emailing or you're interacting with. Now, everybody isn't like that. Some, engineers and some creative directors or whoever producers, they're very much, laid back and, all of that, but there still is a professionalism. There's an etiquette that you still must have. You need to show up on time for sure for a recording session. And make sure that you are understanding, like you're saying, to be coachable, that you're understanding the direction that you're being given. And if you don't, ask. Always get clarification. If you need clarification on a direction or you need clarification on rates, all of those things, because that's what voiceover is. It's such a huge component, a business component. To it.
Yeah, absolutely. So getting back to your journey, you are a full-time voice actor. I don't know if I've specifically said that yet in these last 20 minutes, but you are. You started off back in the day, you got your training, you're doing your thing. And before you went full-time, obviously you were part-time and you were doing something else. And I don't know what that something else is exactly, but I'd like you to talk a little bit about that realm, because there's a lot of people that are watching or listening to this that are saying, I'm really interested in this, but I still got to pay my bills. I still got to eat, everything you mentioned. And I have no clue how I would, what my strategy be to transition from, the full-time job, whatever it is I have, or the 2 part-time jobs that I have that are not voice related, into becoming a business owner / freelancer / entrepreneur. So what are some things that either that you did or that you might recommend for those people that want to start to transition and, think to themselves, okay, I got to make a plan for this full-time voiceover thing. And I need, some strategy behind that.
Yeah. Well, I was, my day job, I was a receptionist for a huge corporation here in the financial district. And I will not name who it was, but I was a lobby receptionist. And so therefore there was a team of receptionists. It wasn't just me in the lobby. There was a receptionist at each entrance and all that good stuff. But at any rate, I said that to say the reason that I'm saying that is because I had opportunities to kind of like switch shifts with people. So I kind of like strategized and I said, okay, when are the clients for voiceover, when are they mostly active? Well, they're mostly active between 9 to 5. And if we're in America, of course, some people have clients overseas and all that. But mostly the studios are open 9 to 5. And most of the time, the clients, that's when they're emailing 9 to 5. Occasionally, yes, some clients will email in the evening. And depending, if you have clients on the West Coast, of course, they're going to be emailing you later. But I picked out, okay, let me see if I can kind of rearrange my shift and my schedule from 9 to 5, or how can I work this out? So in the beginning, what I did was I switched shifts with a colleague who I was working the day shift. So this job, the day job, had multiple shifts, right? So I was working the day shift. I think I was working 6:30 to 3:30, which, oh my God, is not, listen, a 6:30 a.m. Mia is not the same as a 2 p.m., 3 p.m. Mia. Okay. So nobody, I don't want to be up at 6:30 saying, welcome, hello. So I didn't want that shift. And I had colleagues who did, because some of them, they had children and they said, okay, well, this shift works better for me. And I said, all right, let's switch. And so I started working a 3 to 9 p.m. shift. Or at first it was a 2 to 10, and then I switched to a 3 to 9. And so that allowed me to talk to clients and audition and book sessions early in the morning. And so I advise anyone because sometimes people are working full-time voiceover and full-time day job, which I did too, closer to the time of me quitting the day job. But I advise people, if they can, to find ways of creating, if you can, create your own shift for yourself. Or, if you have to switch up with a colleague, I advise, doing that. And I also, as I was in my day job for 5 years before I went to full-time voiceover. And I also started decreasing my hours at my job. And the only way that I did that was because, number one, I had built up a wonderful rapport with my management staff at my day job. And so they really, they knew what I was doing with voiceover, and they were really like, okay, well, if this is what you want to do. And so I started decreasing my hours. And again, colleagues that wanted that extra time, they took over those hours. So if you can kind of build that wonderful relationship with your manager, I know that's not easy for everyone because, I also have had stories of managers that were not, they may have been children of Satan, but but if you can build that relationship, sometimes managers will give a little. I also, when I booked a big time recording session, let's say it was a huge brand, and I knew that I couldn't be at work. They wanted to do, book the session during times where I was doing my day job. Sometimes I would take off. I knew if I had to do a Friday session at 4 p.m., I would just request that time off and go ahead and take my vacation time and say, okay, I'm unavailable. Of course, sometimes one or two times I might have called in sick.
Hey.
If it was a huge, hey, you do what you got to do. If it's a huge opportunity, and if it's something that will propel your voiceover career and your business, you think like a business owner. Okay. So sometimes I've done that. Oh, yes. Can you come in a little earlier or later? Sometimes I would ask for that. Um, let's say you have a session. If you're working, I don't know, a 7 to 4 shift or whatever. Can you go in a little later? Can you say, you know what? I have some things to do. I'm unable to come in at 7 today. Can I come in at 9 and then switch? That therefore you can tell your client and that you're recording with, can we do a 7 a.m. session? Sometimes they will do it. I know clients usually like to do either 9 to 5 or 8 to 6, somewhere in that time frame. But that's kind of a way to be adaptable because you have to adjust. And another one is, of course, many of us are working remotely now. So if you are working from home, then that's easier to do. It's easier to kind of juggle the two if you're working from home already, or even before the pandemic. Some people were working at home. I know, Daree, you do that pretty much, right? You work from home.
Yeah,
You
I have
had
been
already
working from
been.
home for like 15 years, and I've been with the same employer like for 21, 22 years, and I've been at home for 15, which I know I'm a unicorn. I understand that. And there are a lot of people who do voiceover that are like, I don't work from home, and so I've got to do all my auditions at night. I got to spend time with my family. I got to do dinner. I got to take care of my kids. And then maybe like 10, 11 o'clock at night, then I go into my closet and I record and I just do whatever I can for those few hours and then try to get a couple of hours of sleep. I mean, there is always, or almost always, I think, a hustle in the beginning. There's always
Yeah.
things you've got to kind of juggle around and move around. And I know we're going to be talking about mindset again in a little bit, but it's like, what do you need to do to push yourself forward? I think that me working from home puts me in a more advantageous position than someone who has to work 9 to 5 all during the week, but it's
Mhm.
not impossible. We both know
It's
lots of people that were able to overcome, that situation. So I admit that I am a unicorn and that I do have some, advantages being able to do both jobs from home. But I feel like a lot of the strategies that Mia is giving are things that you can implement and try to start to tweak and see what's going on. I don't know if, I guess you have to feel out who you're working with. And some people are going to be able to go in the next day after they watch this and say, hey, you know what? I want to switch shifts. And some people are going to
Yeah.
say, listen, maybe I could do VO on Tuesdays and Thursdays and I'll just
Mhm.
like kind of slowly work my schedule, slowly adjust that way. I don't want to be too obvious. But again, it depends on how much your employer trusts you, what kind of relationship you have with them. Those things that you mentioned are key because some people can't go in and be like, yeah, look, I need that 3 to 9. They're going to be like, what?
I'd be like, you say what now?
Yeah. And it
Yeah.
might be a company that like closes at a certain time and they're going to be like, no, we close at like 4. So you're not going to be able to do that, you know?
Right. Yes. Everybody, everybody. And yes, there are some employers that would look at you like you're crazy, but um, you're right. It is a hustle, and like you were saying, I also had to do before I switched my shift. I was doing auditions at night. I would come home. That's another thing. You pretty much for the first 2 or 3 years, you're gonna have to downsize your socializing that time.
Yeah. You can't stay on that Twitter and Instagram all the time.
Okay, like I'm sorry, it is what it is. You have to, especially those who have family, you have your family responsibilities as well as your work and all that. You're going to have to just say, no, I can't talk right now. And so that's what I was doing too. Before I switched shifts, I was auditioning at night, recording stuff at night. I did a lot of narration work. So I didn't need I had clients that they didn't need to direct me. So I was doing narration work at night. On the weekends, one of my very first clients, I actually booked, uh, it was a corporate video, corporate narration video. I booked him on the weekends on a Saturday morning. He directed me on Skype on a Saturday morning. So you are going to have to sometimes give up your weekends and give up that time, because if you want to build a business, and many of us have, built it from the ground up, you have to put in the sacrifice and the work, and that's hard work, and it's discipline. You have to discipline yourself to do it. It's not always easy, but you find a way if that's what you're passionate about and you love what you do.
Yes, and you will love it. And I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, Mia, but I think that when you do get into it for a few years and you look back, you can appreciate that hustle. You can appreciate, even though it wasn't every moment of it may not have been fun. Like, it's not fun to not get a lot of sleep. It's not fun to feel stressed and worried about, okay, am I doing this right? Is my website straight? Like, it's not fun. All the mental gymnastics you have to go through with just, just in general, any kind of, new entrepreneur. But I think that when you get into it for a few years, whether you're part-time or full-time, you can appreciate the beginning. You know what I mean? You can appreciate the things that you had to do. And hopefully you have a support system around you that can look at what you're doing. And even if they don't understand, even if they don't get it, even if they don't really care about, your voice work, they can appreciate that as well about you and try to help you in other ways. So, I'm a single parent, but for those of you that are not single parents, that for those of you, I guess I should say, that have children and you have a partner with you, or even like a grandparent around, enlist them for help. Say, listen, 1 or 2 nights a week, could you watch little Joey, little Keisha, little, Moquisha, whatever their names are? Can you keep them for a few hours, a couple of nights a week, just so I can focus on some stuff right quick? And, you want to honor those commitments. If, your parents or in-laws or whoever or friends say, yeah, I'll watch them for you for a few hours a week, pick them up on time, do something to show them appreciation. They may not want you to pay them, but show them some appreciation for what they're doing, for supporting you. Because there's a whole lot of people out here that when you have a dream or you're trying to build a business, that will not support you. Not only will they not understand it, but they still won't support you. So when you find someone, even if it's just one person, one friend, one family member that will support you, do something to show their appreciation, and don't wait until it's their birthday to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. You had mentioned, it's amazing to look at. And I used to do this, and I have to go back to doing this because, at the end of every year, some people are creating New Year's resolutions or whatever. But at the end of every year, as far as voiceover was concerned, I would go back and look over my year and see where my wins were, because there are so many losses, because you're auditioning so much and you don't book a lot of those auditions. Mm-hmm. When I started tracking some of my auditions this year. I hadn't even been looking at what I had been booking, exactly as far as statistics are concerned. I only book about 10 or 15% of work that I audition for. And so that is the way that my income is set up. Of course, you have your repeat clients, and then you have those big clients that come in. It's a numbers game. So what I used to do at the end of each year is look at my accomplishments, because like you're saying, Daree, you're working so hard and you want to make sure that you have that stamina to keep going. And a way to get that stamina is, of course, you have your wonderful support system, and you also look at where have I come from? Where was I before? that helped me. That pushed me forward even further. And that's why the wins are so great. You know, you see a lot of voice actors posting online about their work, and I post online about my work. And of course, there are things that we cannot post. You know, those who are in more of e-learning, they can't always post things, but they're just as great. Those wins are just as great, because if you're making money with your voice and that's what you want to do, that's amazing. It's
Yes,
amazing. Yeah.
absolutely. I do a lot of narration work, more so than commercial. And I think that there are pockets of people in the industry that want to rank VO as far as, what genre it is and say, okay, well, it's more
Mhm.
legit if it's national commercial than if it's a radio or or if it's animation, if it's a promo on cable network or national TV or whatever, then it's
Right.
more legit than your standard e-learning compliance module, which everything is, money is being spent everywhere. And I
Yeah.
think some of our colleagues would even argue that some of that narration work can be more lucrative with the way that things are going with rates and stuff. But I just wanted to interject real quick and say that if you are a working voice actor or thinking about becoming one, that whatever you do, like Mia said, is valid. And you will find that if you continue working on your craft and not just auditioning and maybe going to conferences when this pandemic is over and stuff like that, but you're actually working on yourself and trying to improve yourself, and you continue networking and not staying in that box all the time, you will see yourself grow, and you,
Yeah.
again, you can go back to what Mia said about, looking back over your accomplishments and maybe listening to a couple of old auditions you did 5 years ago and saying, wow,
Mm.
like that was okay. Don't trash yourself now, you know, but honoring the growth that has ensued, because, it's kind of like anything else, the more you do it, usually the better you get. So I think that was a really good point.
I've been doing voiceovers now for a few years, but I actually sat on this idea for over 10 years. 10 years of thinking about it, wondering, maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. I don't know how to break in. What do? I don't know anybody that does that. All these different doubts and doing Google searches and coming up with way too much information and not knowing where to start. So it's time for me to pay it forward, and I thought I would help others who keep asking me and DMing me, how do I get started? If you want to share your voice with the world and you're interested in starting a voiceover career or just trying to understand what it takes to get started, I can help you. I created a free resource guide that has links to courses, training, blogs, Facebook groups, and tons of things that'll give you good information to get started and not overwhelm you. These are resources that I've curated myself, and they've served me well as I've started on this journey. Want yours? Sign up and get yours free at bit.ly/Daree voiceover resource. bit.ly/Daree voiceover resource. If you already know this is something you want to do, you can just go straight to the e-course at bit.ly/vocality-e-course.
Okay, so with that being said, we are kind of already talking about mindset, because we're talking about, valuing your journey and, where you've been and hustling and things like that. But what are some other things that we can do when it comes to having a proper entrepreneurial mindset as we transition from maybe a regular 9 to 5 job where we're punching a clock or we're in corporate, and we're moving into this? Because there's an idea that, when you are with a regular job, you're answering to someone, might be punching a clock, you need to arrive at a certain time, you need to do certain things, and maybe you get 30 minutes to an hour of a lunch break. This is way more laid back. You got to be
Yeah.
organized. You've got to have priorities, regardless of whether or not you have children or family. You've got to have your stuff together. So there's a
Yeah.
lot of things going on there when it comes to not just mindset of, an entrepreneur or a business owner, whichever, you want to call it. And also when it comes to marketing yourself, because when you have a job, you got the job, you in, you good. You don't have to keep on trying to get the job. But with this, you got to keep trying to get the job. You got to continue to market yourself. You got to continue to show your worth. So it's real different.
Yeah, I saw, and I can't remember who posted it online. It was one voice actor that said, I'm pretty much unemployed all the time, every day. And I, and I, I don't, while I don't necessarily look at it that way, um, you are, like you said, Daree, you're always looking for that next client and that next one and that next one and multiple clients all the time. And so what you have to do is to be disciplined. You have to set a business plan for yourself. And one thing that I did before I went full time, I was reading, entrepreneurial magazines, all those different magazines. Let me look at, there was one, and I don't really read them that often anymore. Business Week and Entrepreneur magazine, all of those can help you because they have different articles on turning your side hustle into, a full-time hustle and all of those things. So first, start reading articles like that if you haven't already. Also, look at people that within the voiceover community, those careers that you admire. Start researching them and looking at where they were and how far they've gone and the success that they have, accomplished, and see what they did. And no one, I don't believe in, comparing yourself to anyone, but if you can have a sort of a model and say, all right, you know what, let me take a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and let me create something for myself. Hey, that's a good way to go. And see if you can find a mentor. I'm very, again, as far as like creating that business model for yourself, sometimes you can have a mentor or someone who will be able to assist you in creating a plan for yourself if you're kind of stuck. Sometimes that comes from an acting coach. Sometimes that comes just from someone who maybe not even in the voiceover community, who can give you little ideas and tweak things that you may have already set up for yourself. So when I say discipline yourself, that means set goals for yourself. So you want to say, you know what, this week I'm going to do 20 auditions, or this week I'm going to contact 20, I'm going to send out 20 direct emails. This week I'm going to see if I can make $1,000 with voiceover. If you can create things for yourself as far as auditions are concerned, goals for yourself as far as auditions, as far as marketing, as far as financially. When I started, I said, in order for me to leave my day job, I have to have 15 repeat clients. And I don't know why I came up with 15. I don't, it was just some random number. I'm like, I'm going to have 15. If I can get 15 repeat clients, I think I can quit my day job. And of course, you want to make sure that you are financially set. You don't want to be no fool out here, just quitting to quit. And when I say financially set, I mean, I had gone through a financial workshop for artists. The Actors Equity, they do this. They have like a financial workshop for any kind of creatives. Oh, well, I would suggest look at only the amount of money that you're making from voiceover every month. So let's say we take 2020 and you say, all right, add up every over all of the months. So you add up your income, your monthly income that you have created from voiceover for 2020. Then go back and do that for 2019 as well. And then starting at 2019, you say, all right, after I've added up, from January through December, what my income is, Let me divide that and see what my average income is for voiceover, whatever I'm bringing in. You do that for 2020. And if you have, if it's kind of like an average between those 2 years, you'll kind of know where you can project for 2021, right? So if you're going to say, all right, well, how am I going to expand my business in 2021? So then you say, all right, so maybe the goal is not to necessarily leave your day job for 2021, but to increase clients. So you say, all right, I just made on average $3,000 a month in voiceover, for 2020. Let me see if I can make $5,000 a month for 2021. Also, create a budget for yourself. So if you know that you need, let's say, $3,000 to live off of every month, then you're going to have to see if you can create a budget where that you can save. So you're going to have to sacrifice possibly. And I know that's hard right now in these times. Some of us cannot do that. But if you could take a little bit of something and save, because, they always say you should try to have at least 6 months of income that you could possibly live off of if you're going to go full time in any, not just voiceover, but if you're going to do any entrepreneur, endeavor, you should at least have 6 months. And some people say 8 months to a year. Now I know that can be hard for some people, but if you can save like that, that's one thing also that will help. You have a budget, you're disciplined, you just save a little bit and you discipline yourself and say, all right, I'm going to have at least 6 months worth of income so that when I go, you look at all of your bills and you see how much your bills are and what you can do with that. And also put money aside for your taxes, because as we know, when you're doing a business, you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, you will have self-employment taxes to pay. All of those things, you're going to have to set goals to do all of those things. And that's just a small portion, right? Because we haven't even touched on getting your demo and your coaching and your booth, all that set up. And for those who are already, or maybe there are people who are full-time doing both, right? Some people are doing full-time day job and full-time voiceover. I would say challenge yourself to increase that client list. Challenge yourself to increase your auditions. When are you going to, if you haven't already signed up with an agent or, have a contract with an agent, when are you going to add an agent in? How can you add, because it is a numbers game, how can you add yourself into the equation of getting more auditions coming in? Another thing is make yourself searchable. You have to be able to be found. Now, for us, Daree, being African-American women, we got the SEO game happening here. I know that is a debate. Some people don't like expressing like, oh, okay, I am an African-American voice actor. And my talent should stand on its own. And I agree. Your talent alone, it is what it is. You are an actor. Your talent should be it. But you have clients that are looking specifically for African-American voice actors. And you need to be found. You need to be able to be found.
An asset for us. I think that we should highlight our assets. It's not about,
yes.
Someone having pity on us or affirmative action or something. It's just like anything else with Google that you're searching for. That's what you want is what you type in. So what would a person type in the search bar? What would a potential client type in the search bar to find you? And whatever the answer to that is what you use for your SEO. It's called long tail keywords. I'm not going to go all techie on you right now, but I'm going to put a link in the show notes. I run a monthly Twitter chat, and we recently had a Twitter chat where I discussed quite a bit about SEO for your website so that you can be found. So I'll put a link there. It's like maybe like, I don't know, a 3-minute video of highlights where you can get some ideas about that. And I'm glad you said that because, we're always talking about SEO. Mia is on the first page for the relevant keywords. So you can listen to her. She would know. Okay. And another thing I wanted to point out, a moment ago, you talked about, keeping money and making sure that you're saving. We're recording in 2020. Most of us have not been doing vacations and wilding out traveling like we normally would. No conferences are happening in person. So hopefully you've been able to save a couple of coins, but maybe you're reading this late and you spent the coin anyway. Maybe you had a hardship. Maybe, you got laid off. Whatever the case is, just put that in your mind for next year. Maybe I could give up some things. Maybe I could give up cable. Maybe I could give up one of my vacations. Maybe I can give up one of my conferences. Something where you don't even have to put in a lot of effort to save the money. You're just not spending it, and you're putting it aside. So try to get creative with ways that you can build that 6, 8, 12-month emergency fund. And don't think of it even as an emergency fund. Think of it, you should have one, but you could think of it as a separate fund. I like to name my savings account. So you can name it something like, leaving blank, blank job. You know what I mean? Or, my freedom fund, because I'm going to be free. I'm going to be a freelancer. I'm going to be free from these people. Name the thing, whatever you need to name it to motivate you. Even put a picture there. I use this app called Capital with a Q. And I had like a little picture. And, I thought I was going out of the country this year. So I had a picture of that place. I think it was a picture of Colombia or Cuba or something like that. And all the little colorful houses. So the money's still there because I haven't been able to go. The money's still there, but seeing that visual reminder, knowing that that's coming, I think, again, back to imagination and visualization, I think that you need to use whatever tools you can to motivate yourself to those goals that you want to achieve. So I really like that about the savings, give something up that you won't miss. You're going to be doing all them auditions late at night anyway. You ain't going to have time to watch TV. You're not going to have time to keep up with Grey's or whatever you're watching on Netflix. You're not going to have time for that because you're going to be grinding. So
that's right. You don't need those shoes. Look, you don't need those new pairs of shoes, okay? You're not going nowhere.
You have nowhere to wear those stilettos. Nowhere. They're going to sit in a box. No. So that was good. That was good. I didn't think about this before, but Mia was giving all these tips in the show today. The vocation conference where we met last year, they had it virtual this year, and Mia was one of the speakers at this conference. And so she was on a working pros panel where she talked a lot about what it's like to work full time as a voice actor, like she has here. And she shared that panel with a couple of other people, but one of the organizers of the conference, one of the founders, has been so kind as to put a repost of that session on his podcast, which is called the VO School Podcast. So I will put a link in the show notes that you can hear Mia and these other wonderful people share what it's like in the day of a life of a working pro in VO. So make sure you check that out as well. Our friend Jamie has been so gracious as to share that with us. So now we're coming to the end of our time together. It has been a wonderful hour. I love you, but
I love you.
we have to shut this down. So
because we could be here forever.
We probably will be here for another hour after we finish the show. Let's just be honest. But you have given enough free advice, and I want to close off with my regular closing questions that I use for all of my guests. And starting with first, how do you now, at this moment, how do you define success?
Yeah, success for me is being able to take care of me and my family and making sure that my people are okay. As well as being able to, save a bit and, when we get out of this thing, travel, those are the things that if I'm okay and my people are okay, I'm healthy, I'm happy, everybody's healthy and happy, that is success to me. And I have to say that I am on that road right now. And I thank God I'm so grateful for that. Yeah. Yeah. It's good stuff. It's good. After all that, how we were talking about that hard work, it's good. Yeah.
It's so much sweeter, right? Because you worked hard for it. And, we're not going to sugarcoat and act like you just boom, boom. It takes time to do this. I personally am not there yet. I'm not full time. And there are times where you feel like you're alone and you cry or you scream or whatever it is that you do emotionally and demonstratively because you feel like, you're never going to get there. But I really think that there is no there. Even if you reach the goal, like let's say you have a monetary goal, because some people define success in terms of money, and that could be a piece of it. So let's say you reach this goal and you say, yeah, I'm going to make 6 figures. I may not make it in year 1 or year 2. You might, but you probably won't. Whatever that is that you get to 6 figures.
Real talk.
We need to be realistic, right? Whenever you get to that 6 figures, while you're on the way there, you're going to have doubts. Even if you know that you're capable and you're confident about your skills and abilities and you have support system and you have time, there's going to be times where you're going to feel like, I'm never going to get here. Like, but you will, if you just keep on, you just put one foot in front of the other. I'm a runner and people ask me sometimes, how do you do marathons? Just one foot in front of the other over and over and over again for like hours and hours of training, just one foot in front of the other. You just keep stepping. If you stop moving, you're not going to finish. And that doesn't matter if you walk or you run or you jog, but if your feet are moving forward, you'll get there. So that motivational moment, just, that just came from God. Finally,
it's good.
Finally, the last question. You can interpret this however you'd like. What advice would you give to your younger self? It could be you from last year. It could be you from when you were 6 years old. Whatever you want to call it. What advice would you give to the younger Mia?
We are in this time where many of us have had to self-reflect because of everything that is going on with the pandemic and with racial injustice and all of that. I would tell her to always remember that there are certain things that are important, like your family and your relationships with people. Those people who, like we said earlier, Daree, the people that support you, your tribe or your community, however or your gang, as the kids want to say, the gang, as they say, remember those people and always make sure that you have those people with you, because it makes so much of a difference. You're not able to accomplish as much alone and by yourself. And so, yes, we have been talking about goals and pushing forward and all of that. But all of that success, in my opinion, means nothing without the people that really are important to you. And so find those people. If you don't have your family there, find those people and get rid of all the other crap.
Yeah.
Get rid of the other crap, because that noise, it will be so much better to eliminate the noise.
Yeah. Those toxic relationships that might be lurking around you will not celebrate your success or promote you on your way to success. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Yes, I had to learn the hard way, but listen, knowing is half the battle. Knowing is half the battle. Yeah.
This has been so much fun sharing things with you. Even though I know you and I've known you for a bit, I still learned something from this conversation. So thank you.
Same.
And if you're listening or watching and you got something out of it, please let us know. Please leave us a comment. Mia, tell us where we can find you if we want to follow you, support your work, cheer you on, learn from you as a virtual mentor.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you can follow me. I'm on Twitter, Mia Bankston, at Mia Bankston. I'm on, I have a Facebook page. You can follow that, Mia Bankston, the VO. And my Instagram is at Miss_Bankston. Yeah.
Very nice. And all of those links will be in the show notes as well. This series, this ColorVO series will continue. And so just check out Kicking It with Daree every month to find out who I'll be talking to next. And again, shouts out to you, Mia, for sharing your wisdom. Go to the show notes, get the links, follow her, check her out on the Voiceover podcast and see what wisdom she's got there. There's something to learn from everyone that's a working pro. So again, I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Shout out to you for doing this. This is awesome. I can't wait to see more. I love it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for kicking it with me today on the Kicking It with Daree podcast.